Good evening, and thank you for joining us. On behalf of the Cleveland Clinic Community Care Program, welcome to this Family Fireside Chat. I'm Reverend Dr. Amy Green. I'm the Director of Spiritual Care for the Cleveland Clinic, and I appreciate you joining us tonight for this very important conversation. Tonight, our guests have opened up their home and their ears to listen to your concerns and to talk about the COVID-19 vaccine. Doctors Ronald Adams and Linda Bradley are physicians from the Cleveland Clinic who have between them 80 years of collective service at the Cleveland Clinic. They met in medical school and have been married for many decades and are great partners in work and in life. So we're very excited to have them. Dr. Adams is Assistant Medical Director of the Cleveland Clinic Employee Health Plan, and Dr. Bradley is Professor of Obstetrics and Gynecology and Reproductive Biology. She's also the founder and chair of Cleveland Clinic Celebrate Sisterhood, a health and wellness fair that attracts hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people each year. So we thank you all for agreeing to participate in this discussion tonight. The sessions will open up for a Q&A period at the end of our panelists' presentations. If you have any questions, please type them in to the Q&A window. We will answer as many questions as time allows. This meeting is being recorded and will also be available for later viewing on our website. Tonight, really the goal is to listen to you. There'll be a lot of questions and the doctors will do their best to answer them. However, they won't be able to answer everything, and they certainly will not be giving medical advice. They'll be directing you to resources that they trust and know that are reliable. And that's why I think it's so important that you meet these two wonderful physicians, because they are such trustworthy voices in the community. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Adams with the first question. Dr. Adams, you've heard all the controversy and fear around the COVID-19 vaccine. Could you please share your thoughts on that with the community?
Well, thank you, Reverend Green. First of all, I want to say good evening to everyone. It's great to be able to join you. I wish we could actually see you, but that's not possible. But I want to emphasize that Dr. Bradley and myself are physicians on the front line. We're actually practicing each and every day. So don't get hung up in the titles because we're there touching patients each and every day, discussing these issues with patients each and every day, and trying to help patients improve their health. Let me just preface a few comments by saying that 2020 was a tough year for all of us. Tough year for me professionally, tough year for me personally, and I can really share those stories about how difficult COVID has been, both in terms of the practicing physician and on our lives, our personal lives. I've lost several patients this past year, people who I've known for decades, people who I never would have anticipated in 2020 to have left us. And I've seen people in their homes, both those who have limited resources to those who have lots of resources, experience a lot of pain with this disorder. Well, let me move on to this vaccine because I like the slide that said there's hope, because I'm thinking back about Jesse Jackson, who said, let's keep hope alive. And I think that we can keep hope alive if we follow that cultural icon, Spike Lee, who said, let's do the right thing. And I think that entails all of us to get vaccinated. I've been vaccinated. My spouse has been vaccinated, Dr. Bradley. My mother-in-law has been vaccinated, who's age 90. My brother's been vaccinated, who's 72. And other members of our family. The only ones in our family that have not been vaccinated are our children, who are not at the age eligible for vaccination. And so I think that we have, light at the end of the tunnel, but we need your support. We need you to engage your family, friends, and community to convince them to get vaccinated so that we can move on and have a better 2021 and a better 2022.
And I would also echo.
Thank you, Dr. Adams.
Let's see, can you hear me okay? I was going to say, I would also echo my husband's sentiments. As a practicing gynecologist, I'm not doing obstetrics right now. I also see many women who are often caregivers to those who have been sick, those who get sick, and those who will need ongoing care. So women also, just like men, have a big burden of disease when they're following their patients, and even with their young children, and even with their adolescents and college age kids. So it's very, very important. I think, as we've talked about, it's important not to procrastinate, but to vaccinate, and to know, as Dr. Adams will later talk, what we are using now as a vaccine is treatment. As African Americans and people of color, sure, we all know that there have been issues related to social determinants of health, racial inequality, redlining, all the metrics for health from head to toe, higher rates of stroke, higher rates of cataracts, higher rates of heart disease, lung disease, kidney disease, gout, bad backs, bad problems with female issues. We know that Black people have the largest burden of the disease burden, including pregnancy-related outcomes and even sometimes infertility issues. But what we love about this vaccine that is very different from things you may recall from the 30 plus years of the Tuskegee trial, don't go by that trial alone to say you're not going to be vaccinated, because that trial, unfortunately, was a bad thing to do to people. There are reparations for families and those who were born as offspring to the men who were not treated. There was treatment for syphilis back in the 60s and 70s and actually 50s, but the treatment was withheld. A lot of people are saying, oh my God, this is another thing that they're doing to us. There was treatment, but it was withheld. Right now, COVID is our hope, because this is a vaccine that, when taken, does three major things, all of the vaccines. And Dr. Adams certainly will be able to give you more points, but my basic take home is the following. If you get vaccinated, you are, number one, less likely to die, less likely to be seriously ill. And what does that mean? In an ICU with being intubated, and less likely to just require general hospitalization. And if you get a case, it's often to be mild. So when we look at what's currently available to us, look to now, which is the future. The past, is something that's happened. It was wrong. We'll talk later about how studies are done. I've been involved with many clinical trials as a gynecologist and surgeon and medical therapies and surgical devices, how things are really, all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted. So I have 100%, 1,000% confidence in the vaccines that are currently available, and would really strongly encourage all of our citizens, when they are eligible, to receive the vaccinations or vaccines.
So, I think there are a few issues here that I think we should hone in on. One, I'm seeing each day more and more people come into my office, and majority of my practice are African-American patients, come in and telling me I've been vaccinated. They already received one vaccine. Some have already received two. And that's particularly those who are in that upper percentile of age, the 80 to 90-year-olds. And I'm really impressed about how people have taken a positive step to get vaccinated. I think the issues were not so much that people don't want to be vaccinated, is that people had difficulty in the process of how to get vaccinated. How do I sign up? Where do I go? Who's going to take me? Is it going to cost me some money or not? There are lots of issues that have nothing to do with patients' desire, because I think the desire is there. It's a question of how do you access it? And I'm happy to say that while this started out very slowly, okay, and probably because there was not a lot of vaccine available, we have picked up the effort. And I'm going to give a kudos to Governor DeWine, because he has made really great strides at trying to push this vaccine out to various communities. Many of you may be aware that starting tomorrow, March 17th, at the Wolstein Center on the campus of Cleveland State University in downtown Cleveland, a central area of our city, people will be able to go to get vaccinated. This is going to be a monumental effort, which is what was needed when you have a monumental task in front of you. not the onesie twosies kinds of situation, but where mass numbers of people can get vaccinated. And so I think you're going to be very, very impressed about what you see over the next few weeks. The issue is that we got to deal with, we need your support to get our community registered and transported downtown to get vaccinated, as well as our other vaccine sites. So what started out as a snail's pace is going to be moving like a rabbit. And we need you to help move this process along and not be concerned so much about the process of how you get vaccinated, to know a vaccine is only going to work if it's in your arm.
And I would also echo that the monumental numbers are 6,000 per day that they are planning, I think over, if I'm not mistaken, 12 hours. And the beauty is that it's capturing the Black community within the radius of several miles for a central spot. There'll be information that you'll be able to get, I think, through this website and other ways to know that there's going to be bus vouchers to and from. There may be even lift tickets to get there. But this is a time that others help others. You help your neighbor that may need a ride. You help someone to get registered. As Dr. Adams said, it's going to be open. You can't just show up. You have to register. And it's important that you do that. And we do think that there will be ample numbers of vaccine availability. And we're extremely proud of this, as well as he mentioned some of our community centers, health centers, Langston Hughes, for instance. I have a friend that got hers at Walgreens. There are just many, many different ways to do it. Don't get frustrated if the lines are busy or you have to be on the website. If you are a digital native, you know how to use a computer. Like we help my mom, who's 90 years old, get vaccinated. Thank God that we're here in the city to help her, because it may be hard for a certain group of people, disabled, you know who those folks are. So we do have to look after each other and be neighborly, friendly, and help out.
Well, thank you both. You've already answered a lot of the questions that have been coming in, but I wanted to just ask one more before we dive into the ones that have been written in advance, as well as some that might be coming in live. And you've said a lot about already kind of the historic mistrust within the community of persons of color with healthcare in general for all kinds of legitimate reasons. And you've named some of the things that we all hope are helping to mitigate that mistrust and cause an increased sense of trust in the system, that this will be to everyone's advantage and it is a safe thing to do. What are some of the ways that we want to hear from you physicians, as well as from the community, some ideas about how the Cleveland Clinic can help to continue to alleviate that mistrust? I mean, this very conversation is part of that effort to say, how do we just sit down together virtually in your living room and talk to you? And also, what other kinds of things could we do as a community of health, rather than just throwing more information? Obviously, information is always going to be the best way, I think. But what are some of the other ways that perhaps we can increase trust?
Well,
yeah,
that's a good point. So I'm a primary care doctor, so I'm a strong believer in relationship with patients. And the more you have a relationship with a provider, whether it be a physician, a nurse practitioner, physician assistant, because the definition of provider is changing. I like to refer to as a relationship with a physician's team. The better you're going to be able to access and meet your needs. Healthcare is very, very complicated. And to try to do it on your own sometimes could be like going up a hill that you can't get to the top. And so I would say for the city of Cleveland and the Cleveland Clinic in particular, building out our primary care departments to make it accessible, that you have a relationship, that you know who to call when you have an issue, to help you navigate the healthcare system. That is really, really important. And this pandemic, we've seen that in so many different ways, not only in healthcare. If you take someone who owns a small business, let's say if you have a beauty parlor or barbershop, and your business was impacted by this pandemic, and you needed to go to the bank and you didn't have a relationship with the banker, then we know what happened there. So getting your foot in the door, having a relationship with your physician and your physician's team that supports that physician, critically important for you to be able to access healthcare in a meaningful way. And I personally think that the clinic, which most of us think of as a specialty hub, has moved in that direction positively over the past few years. And hopefully it will expand upon that principle as we go into the future.
And I would also say that the clinic has been excellent in educating everybody, from nurses to the front, our front door staff or our front desk staff. We have almost twice to 3 times a week. We were almost doing daily meetings and briefs. Everyone looks, on our internet for updated information. So I would say when anyone is things are changing minute to minute. And we can no longer really print out sheets of paper, but becoming more savvy with our internet, looking at cdc.gov, looking at the FDA, looking at the Cleveland Clinic COVID websites. Really, you will get, that's accurate. That's not fake news. That's real news that you need to know. And I think the important thing is to not get frustrated. I must say at the beginning last March as a physician, when I had to stop doing surgery for several weeks, it made me sad, it made my patients anxious, and we didn't know what was going on. And every day there was something different. Ron and I look at medicine as we know every time you have a strep throat, you get penicillin. If you have a bladder infection, you get Bactrim. And we've just become very dogmatic about how we do things. This word pivot is really very much what we've had to do, this new dance. And every day we had to give up this rigidity of it's being done this way. One week we didn't wear a mask, then we wore a mask. Then we did double mask. Then we did face shields. So I think we have to be mutable. We have to change. We have to dare to be different. And doctors are very, very rigid. And so for me, this has been a year that I just have to say, okay, let this roll off like Teflon. Something new and improved is happening. And I've got to go with what it is today, not what it was last week. And we have to be able, as Ron said, as primary care and even subspecialty care to share with our patients the importance of the uncertainties, that it's not dangerous, but medicine changes. And every day with COVID, the dynamics, all the things that we see in the news are changing. So I want our patients to be flexible. Don't be so rigid. Well, I heard yesterday this, they said this 2 months ago. Just know that it changes. And you want a healthcare system and doctors who are on the cutting edge, who are ready to change. And we have to give the new information as it comes to us. And that's been a little different, I think, for me as a surgeon. I've used the same suture for 30 years. And when they say, no, now this suture is better or this machine is better, it's like, okay, let me see. And often it is right. So our patients have to do the same too.
Well, you've made a lot of really great points, and we are going to try to include some slides at the end that have reliable phone numbers that you can call and check. Even if you're not that tech savvy, you can call these numbers and get some answers. And this is extremely helpful. I agree with you both. I wonder, Dr. Adams, one of the most common questions we get is about the concern about seemingly how fast the vaccines were developed, whether that's what happened or not. The misnomer, I think, of warp speed, I think that got a lot of people a little bit freaked out. Could you say more about what that really meant and whether or not that's a real concern?
Yeah. First of all, the technology around these vaccines was actually in the making way before the pandemic. What wasn't available is the money that the federal government put up to make sure these vaccines got into production. And that the research that was needed, which was billions of dollars, was made available to the pharmaceutical companies such that we could, basically the federal government said, we're going to take a gamble. We're going to give the pharmaceutical companies money. And if it works, we're ahead of the game. And if it's not, we'll lose the dollars. And so what was accelerated was putting up money to allow this research, which the various trials that occurred in that period of time, that would not have occurred in the more normal circumstances. It takes a lot of money to do a clinical trial. And in this case, we're talking about several clinical trials. So what was warped was cash, okay, to be able to do this. What was not warped was the technology was on the shelf already that these drug companies, and I'll take Moderna in particular. Moderna is a tiny little company. It is not a big company. And it was this pandemic that allowed them to access money from the federal government to produce this vaccine in this short period of time. What wasn't cut in corners is the rigidity of the research and the safety that we require for these vaccines. I think that's really important to understand. There were no cutting of the corners.
Yeah,
It's extremely helppul. It sounds like they just.
Unfortunately, it's a bad name, the Operation Warp Speed. When I go back and I think as in gynecology, what do we know about the mRNA vaccine? It's been around for more than 20 years. Right now, there are clinical trials, phase 2 trials for this mRNA vaccine. We want it, what it does when the shot in the arm goes into you, it doesn't alter your DNA. What it's doing is getting your immune system primed. And the easy way I think about it is just the easy way to think about it is that it's going to create like what I call a wanted poster sign in your body for the COVID protein. So it's going to recognize like the old cowboy Indians days, they wanted this person or missing baby, missing dog. There's a wanted sign. It's going to recognize a portion of that COVID vaccine and it's going to tell your body, fight it. So the mRNA vaccine right now, there's 3 cancers that this technology is currently in development for. Head and neck tumors, skin tumors called melanoma, and right now, a phase 2 trial for ovarian cancer, one of the deadliest female cancers for women. And so that vaccine development, yes, we're using it today for COVID, but it has so many ongoing potentials that we don't know down the line. Will it be treating Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, or dementia? But right now, it's very, very exciting. So I agree with Dr. Adams. It's an old technology. It's sort of like I'm looking here at our cell phone. We got the cell phone technology from where? NASA space. Okay. We aren't able to say, I want to go here. Where's the closest Starbucks? How many miles? What's the temperature? That's not new. This is old technology from government tax dollars for NASA space that now allows us an application for use. So think of this vaccine as, in the next 10 to 20, 30 years, it's going to be studied for so many things and hopefully revolutionize some of the illnesses that many of us will unfortunately have. Safe, it's effective, we're confident in its use, and I can only echo my husband's comment. No cutting of corners, no cheating. It's really, really regulated so well about how studies are done. And this is not the old days. I just want to mention that. Very, very important.
Thank you both. And I love your image of the wanted poster for our genes, or, that our body knows what to look for now. And that really clarifies it in a way that is helpful to those of us who are not medical.
That's what it's going to do for cancer, perhaps in the future.
Yeah.
I'm thinking what I know from ovarian cancer, and I have an aunt who has that. And so to know that it might, again, you have to be in a trial, so it's not today, but that's just exciting to know what this can do. And, it's a great time to be a doctor, and especially those researchers to know that there's
wonderful. Yeah, thank you. So before I dive into some of the questions, one of the other ones that has come up a lot, and I'll direct this to you, Dr. Bradley, as a real leader in women's health for a very, very long time. What are you recommending to pregnant mothers about the safety of the COVID vaccine? Is there anything different that they would need to know?
Right now, the largest society is called ACOG, American College of OBGYN. And there have been position papers and statements, and what are we doing at the Cleveland Clinic? we are recommending all of our pregnant patients, those who are pregnant, who want to be pregnant, who are breastfeeding, to get the vaccine. And so right now there are, when you get the vaccine, there's something called a V tracker. So they're checking women since the vaccine's inception. We have not seen any issues for the offspring, for the women that get it. I do not want women to be afraid of getting pregnant during this pandemic, because most pregnancies will go well. But unfortunately, for those women who do develop COVID during their pregnancies, they may have a worse outcome, especially respiratory. And we've seen the stories of women not making it. So right now, and it's not me, it's not the Cleveland Clinic, but the national body of physicians gives guidance and says, yes, if you are pregnant, you can get the vaccine. Yes, if you're breastfeeding. And yes, women are also asking, just last week, a patient who says, well, I want to be a mom maybe in 6 months or a year. Is this going to make me infertile? No, that's not what makes you infertile. And so, yes, women who are pregnant should get it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, this question is directed to either one of you. And I think it's kind of a double question. That is, out of all the recipients who've had, we know there have been some adverse reactions. And so if one of you could comment on sort of the percentage of those or the number of those, is that of any concern? And of that number, do we have any idea how many of those are minorities, people of color? Is there any difference in the adversity of the reactions that do occur? Do we know?
I think you have to put adverse reactions into two categories.
Mm-hmm.
I call one minor adverse reactions, and the other category is severe adverse reactions. So let's talk about the first one, which is the one that would probably be more common, but not as common as people may think. So when you get vaccinated, you could have soreness in your arm, okay? You could have, the following day, you may have some muscle ache or fever. It feels like you have the flu or headache. Those symptoms tend to go away within a day or so. And those would be considered minor adverse reactions. But that's a small price to pay to prevent COVID, okay? The other category is what we call severe adverse reactions, one in which we call anaphylactoid reactions. And those are situations where someone gets a serious allergic reaction, such as lip swelling, shortness of breath, fast heart rate, potentially pass out. Those are exceedingly rare. To my understanding, between the two vaccines, the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccine, of the millions of people up until like February, only 66 of those reactions occurred. And that's the reason why we're asking people not to get vaccinated and walk out the door. You must stay and be observed, okay? Such if that were to happen to you, okay? Measures could be taken to relieve you of those symptoms, okay? So there are certain individuals who, if you have a history of a severe anaphylactoid reaction, okay, meaning you ingested something or something was injected into you and you have one of those reactions like I just spoke about, you need to have a conversation with your provider to discuss about whether you should be vaccinated or not, and in what setting.
And this is why for most of the places that you go, you are waiting at the Cleveland Clinic. They give you a timer. It's 15 minutes, some places 30 minutes. So, when you're planning your visit, you're dropping someone off, know that they have to wait their turn, and then they're going to have to wait 15 to 30 minutes to get the vaccine, which just takes seconds. And then you can sign up for your V tracker. So every day when I got my vaccine, in fact, I just received, it's been about a month since my second one, to see how I've done. There's a national, on your smartphones, a questionnaire, like 4 questions, very easy, how you're doing. And there are national numbers. The Cleveland Clinic just gave us an update, maybe last week. Really, between all of the vaccines, there's not one that has more or less or anything like that. So just, just for you to be aware.
I think if you can put it in this perspective, the event rate is so low, it's like your chances of winning the $1 billion lottery, okay? Which is like almost never gonna happen, okay? So, I mean, so if you're banking on winning the mega lottery, it's all fun and games, but in reality, almost nobody's ever gonna win that lottery. And the event rate with this vaccine is that low. So you have to think, you must put these things in perspective, into relative perspective. A car driving in an automobile is riskier than getting this vaccine. And we know the various types of adverse reactions that can occur from riding in an automobile. From the least, you get a flat tire, you may get a ticket, or you have a fatal auto accident. Those things happen every day. And nowhere are we anywhere near anything of that level in terms of adverse events with any of these vaccines. So I really want to emphasize, as I emphasize to my patients each and every day, this is a safe vaccine, important for you to get so that you can be safe, your family can be safe, and your community can be safe, and we can move on with our lives.
One other thing I would say, that the companies are asking us to remind our patients not to take Tylenol or Motrin before being vaccinated, or an antihistamine or Claritin or something like that. So wait to see if you have a reaction. And I thought when I got mine, I said, oh, I got mine about a month ago. It's like, oh, I fell off the wagon for my exercise when I was, my arms were sore, lifting weights, doing my barbells, but the soreness was just a little bit from the shot in the arm. So got to get back on my New Year's resolutions. But it's really, if you get side effects like that, soreness, a little low-grade fever, then take it. But don't take it what we call prophylactically, just in case. Most people really do quite well. And also I should mention the elderly, those 80 and above, seem to have less of an issue than those that are younger. So just an FYI.
Well, thank you. And I also think it's kind of like the flu shot. It's better than the flu,
Yeah.
So getting these few side effects is better than getting the COVID itself, which is a lot more life-threatening. Thank you both. I think one of the problems that I've heard about is that, we were working hard to get some of the minority community to trust the vaccine more, and then it became not so easy to get. So is there any reason for people to fear that that income might be a barrier, that their zip code location might be a barrier? Is there any of those concerns? How can we alleviate some of those concerns? Are they going to have a cost to it, and will they know in advance? What are the best sources of information before people try to get out there and get in the line to get it?
So the vaccine is free to all of the public. If you do have insurance, your insurance company will be charged an administrative fee to give the vaccine, but the vaccine itself is actually free. If you don't have insurance, don't worry about it, okay? You're going to still get vaccinated. So I don't think you should put that as a barrier to prevent you from getting vaccinated.
Great, thank you. One person asked, so what are there ingredients in the vaccine, such as gluten, dairy, lactose, soy? Like, can people find out in advance if they might have allergic reactions to some of the contents of the vaccines?
Yeah, so you can actually go to the manufacturer's website if you wish to find out about the, what I call them fillers, like every medication. If you get a pill, you have the main ingredient that pill has, but you have also fillers. And there are certain other chemicals in the vaccine. I know with, I think it's Moderna or Pfizer, I can't remember exactly. There's something polyglycol is in it if you have an allergy to that. But you can actually go to the website to see what are those other ingredients. In all honesty, most of us have never had any issues with these kinds of things. But if you're really curious, I wouldn't be able to tell you specifically. I did look, I can't even remember the names, were so long. I don't really think it's a major issue. I think it's more of an issue of not getting vaccinated than an issue about worrying about these little sub ingredients that are in the vaccine. Don't worry about the little stuff, is what I would say.
Yeah, we certainly have plenty of big stuff to worry about right now. So what precautions should people with autoimmune disorders or diseases take? Are there any differences that you know of for people that are perhaps on immunosuppressants? Does either of you know that? Or I know we have some infectious disease folks on the line too.
Well,
So.
I can just mention, because I just had a good conversation with Dr. Frazier yesterday with an interview for about an hour, and I call him our Dr. Fauci. And I went through the litany: COPD, sickle cell disease, lupus, kidney disease, hypertension, diabetes. There is no cancer. You know, if you're a breast cancer survivor, if you're a colon cancer survivor, get vaccinated. So, you know, I pretty much, my open-ended question is there anybody who should not be vaccinated? I mean, if you have COVID right now, this minute, no, even if you've had COVID, you should get vaccinated. And most are saying about, I think isn't it around about 90 days later, because of the short-term immunity that it may confer, the natural immunity. So, you know, I don't want people to kind of, well, I have this, I can't get that. You know, this has no eggs in it. So, you know, my daughter has an egg allergy, and I had to look up a few things. No, you can get this when it's your turn. It doesn't have any eggs in it for that. So
the only exception I would make to that issue is if you're getting active chemotherapy, that you should have a conversation with your oncologist. Where are you at in your chemotherapy regimen? Particularly patients who are getting chemotherapy for like leukemias, et cetera. But have a conversation. In most instances, the answer is going to be go forward, but there may be certain situations where if you're under active chemotherapy, there may be a recommendation to delay for a little bit, but not to delay forever.
Thank you. And I'm guessing the answer will be similar to someone's asking, can they take the vaccine before a scheduled mammogram because they're concerned about any interaction with radiation? Is there any reason to be concerned about that?
What's really not radiation. First of all, there's very little radiation for mammograms. So that should just be done. If you fly, my son lives in California. Every time I fly to see him to and from, I get more radiation being in the air on an airplane flight than getting my annual mammogram. Really, the issue is that we talked about some patients getting these minor side effects, lymph node swelling under the arms where your major lymph nodes could be, that there may be, if you have a scheduled mammogram tomorrow and your vaccine is tomorrow, get both, okay? If there's a way that I kind of need my mammogram, it's kind of due in 2 to 3 months, go ahead and get your vaccine first. It's very unlikely that you're going to have lymph node swelling, which when you have your mammogram, we look at the axilla on our armpits. Maybe it's an easier way to say where you could see something. But in general, it's a thought, but you should not cancel your mammogram. I have colleagues that are breast cancer survivors who get a mammogram 1 month and get an MRI the following month as a double check for recurrence. You should still go. And it tends to be, if you're going to get lymph node swelling, remember which arm you got it in, because that would be the side that usually the lymph nodes may show up. But it's not radiation, okay? It's really just the low potential that you may get some lymph node swelling. That's very transient. This is not for life. It may last, up to a couple of weeks. Yeah.
That's really helpful. Thank you. I think, again, for those of us who are not medically trained, those kinds of things, we just don't know unless we ask. It's very helpful. Another question there's a sort of common, urban legend that if you feel bad afterward, it's a sign that that it is working. But if you don't feel bad afterward, it might be a sign that it's not working. Is there any truth to either of those?
Yin or yang, you can't win or lose.
You take your pick.
Take your pick, right? Yeah. So if you have a fever, muscle aches, that is indicative that you had a very good immune response, but all of us have different levels of immune response. It doesn't mean that if you didn't have that, that the vaccine isn't effective. So I wouldn't take that as I didn't get adequate protection. Okay, so it's interesting phenomena. You know, I'm sure people have gotten the flu shot and felt a little like they had flu-like illness after they got the flu shot. Same difference. You got a good immune response. Other of us have I've gotten my flu shot for decades and never had a reaction. And believe it or not, I've never had the flu because I've always got my flu vaccine. So I consider myself protected from influenza because I got protected with flu vaccine. I feel myself as protected because I've gotten my 2 Moderna vaccines, and I didn't have any of those reactions to guide myself by.
Thank you. There's also a common question: is it safe to travel? You know, how soon after getting both doses of vaccine is it safe to travel? Are there any reasons why one should be concerned?
Yeah, well, this is a big contention between myself and my wife around this travel issue. So you hit a hot button. So
well, I don't mean to cause any marital strife.
Yeah. You hit a hot button there.
Yeah.
So this is how I would answer that question. First of all, if you get the 2-shot vaccine, you really aren't going to reach adequate immunity until after 2 weeks from the 2nd shot. Okay, so I wouldn't travel between the 1st and 2nd shot. And if you did travel at this time, I would say the safest method of travel would be in your car, okay, with you and your family and no one else. If you decide, the CDC at the moment does not recommend air travel, okay? It's not because the plane is a high-risk situation. In fact, planes are very safe. And I've been watching this and reading on this for quite a while. Your airplane is safe in terms of transmission of COVID. That's been well documented in the literature. The issue is the airport. Getting into the airport, getting through the airport, that's where the issue is. And right now, I think in the state of Ohio, we have about 20% of people receive 1 shot. And I think we're about 14% of people may have received 2 adequate, have gotten both vaccines. So we're not there yet. We got to get to about 70% of people to be vaccinated. And then let's say there's natural infection of about 10 to 20%. So that'll get us to 70 to 80% of immunity in the community. I think once you hear that number, plus the new case rate in the community is 5 per 100,000 or less, then I think you will hear from the public health authorities, which is where I would listen for the messaging about opening up society around being more liberal around travel. So I would say the party line is air travel is really not as safe as you may think at this point because we haven't vaccinated enough people, and I would be cautious about that. But you know, the bottom line is you got to wear a mask, you got to socially distance, you got to stay out of congregate spaces. We all know this drill. We've done it now for a year. You're all experts at it. And don't let that up. Whether you got vaccinated or not, you still got to go through that process for quite a while yet.
Right. I think it's really important to, I noticed that just wearing the mask as a courtesy to remind people, you know, we're not out of the woods. And even if those, you know, if you're lucky enough to be vaccinated already, we still owe it to everyone else to be safe and careful and not, you know, not giving any appearance of being careless at all. I think that
it's pretty hard. We have 2 children on both coasts, Los Angeles and New York, the hardest hit cities. And we haven't seen our kids in over 15 months. So that's where we're on. I mean, I feel like I'll wear 5, you know, N95 mask and a face mask and I don't know what. I'm ready to see my kids. And so I have to also say that I'm a doctor, I'm a scholar, but I'm also a mother. And it's been, I just want to know, we have lots of people on this line. I am not a person just made of cement. We do our Zooming and our calls, but there is still that hug that I want. and that embrace and whatever. So what's nice to know is very soon the vaccine, at least according to this administration, will be available to everyone. I think it's I may be wrong, I think it's May 1st or sometime in May. So we're really asking our children to start looking out for as soon as they can get vaccinated. Because right now, if everyone's vaccinated in your small bubble, you're good to go. But again, as Ron said, there's a lot of distance between here and Los Angeles or New York. So I'm being patient, Ron.
I hear you. I mean, we just became grandparents during this whole thing, and we haven't met her yet face to face. And so we're kind of in the same boat. We're just like dying to get to see her, but we're also really grateful that she's well and that her young, healthy parents will soon be in line to get vaccinated. But it's very hard. I mean, it's really, I think every family on the planet has been affected by this. And do we know yet whether we're going to need a booster next year, or how long this vaccine is going to last? If we go to all this trouble to get it and we overcome all our fears and we get in the line, do we know how long it's going to be protective?
So the answer is we don't know. And, but time will tell. Coronaviruses are very common viruses. It's just that this particular coronavirus we have not been exposed to in the past. That's why we call it novel. Okay. And I think that, first of all, we have thousands of people who are in the clinical trial. They're going to be evaluated very carefully to see what their immunity, how long their immunity lasts. We'll also have studies of people not in clinical trials to be able to measure immunity with tests that can actually truly measure immunity. So there's a lot of tests out there that are not very good. So we got to be careful about what we choose to evaluate patients. But I'm going to just give you my theory, okay? And that's all it is a theory. Just like we get flu shot every year, I think we may be winding up getting a corona vaccine shot on some sort of regular basis. And why do I say that? These variants that we're seeing around the country and around the world, and this virus has the ability to mutate very quickly. And when it mutates, it replicates. So the only way we can suppress all of that is to get more and more people vaccinated now. That's why it's so important. I'm really happy to see the federal government has stepped up its game such that we're in a much better position than we were several months ago, where the president said the other night that hopefully by Independence Day, we will be independent from a significant amount of this coronavirus. But that's how we maybe keep this thing under control. But it's possible, yes, it's possible. I'm not speaking from facts, I'm speaking from how I'm reading into things, that we may have to get a booster shot in the future.
Right, and just, it may not be fast, but it is mutating. So I think from what I'm hearing, not fast as in, I'm not sure what he means, but it's slowly making some changes as our editors are letting us know on the backside. So, but I do think from those I've listened to, like Ron, that it's likely that there'll be a booster shot. But for right now, let's go with what we have. There are studies that are being done, and we can go with what we know. That's what I would say.
Well, we're coming close to the end of the hour, and I'm very conscious of respecting your time. I know, Dr. Bradley, you were in several surgeries today, and you, Dr. Adams, were at it since probably before many of us even thought about waking up, both of you. So I want to be very respectful of your time, and I'm super grateful for all the ways that you've helped answer some of these very, very burning questions for community members. We did not have a lot more people typing in questions live during this session. So if you do have questions that, and there were many more that we just didn't have time to get to that were, equally legitimate questions that we would like to try and answer. And then someone from we'll do our best to get back to folks. If we can trace back who asked the question, we'll do our best to answer them. We really appreciate just the trust that you engender in the community by your very presence and your very lives. You've been such stalwart members of the community and the Cleveland Clinic community for so long. I just feel like if people don't trust you, I don't know who they trust. So I really appreciate your time and your taking all these questions and extending your workday yet another long hour to answer some of these concerns. It's a time of great uncertainty, but I do think I can assure you all that are listening, the Cleveland Clinic's goal is always to arm you with tools and accurate information. We're very happy to work hand in hand with the community to get through this unprecedented global crisis together. And the conversation doesn't end here. We have a variety of virtual events set up coming up to answer more questions about the vaccine. Please look to more further communication about that for upcoming webinars and help to spread the word about these opportunities in your community. There will be a slide that's just popped up, and we'll leave that up for a few more moments before the hour ends so that you can take down any notes and information that you would like to. And they'll also be at the Langston Hughes Family Health Center Education Center. We'll have a slide for that where you can find out more information. And let's see if someone else has asked a question. Someone has asked, will there be a choice from the single dose versus the 2-dose? Will they have a choice? I'm pretty sure people don't get to pick which vaccine, but I'll let one of the doctors answer that.
No, you don't get to pick.
Right, that's what I thought. Yeah.
So you get what's available, and that's more important than picking, because to be honest with you, they're all equivalent in terms of that outcome that Dr. Bradley talked to you about, which is death, hospital admission, and ICU admission. Doesn't mean you can't get the sniffles, okay? And it doesn't mean that you can't have asymptomatic acquisition of COVID. That's why we're still asking people to wear a mask. We'll find out with time about how effective it is for that minor illness. But you know something? I've been doing this for 40 years, and I've never seen anyone die from a cold. Okay. And so, you know, it's a cold is a pain, you know, you got the sniffles, you don't feel great, you know, you're coughing, sneezing, whatever. Yes. But that's a far less dangerous situation than the situation of seeing people suffer as we've seen this past year. And you know something, this is one of those diseases, unlike any other illness I have experienced in my 40-year career. And I started out with HIV. Okay. Even when people died with HIV, they died with their families next to them.
Right. Yes.
This is horrific.
Yes.
To see people leave this world by themselves. And the only person that's standing there holding their hand is some great nurse. Yeah. So I hope that when this is all over, we have a nurse celebration day, because they have really been your family when you're not there. And what we're trying to get to is putting an end to this tragedy that we experience. And that's why it's so important to you and your family and your community to get vaccinated.
And I'd also like to add this one thing. When we talk, this is, you know, we're speaking to people of color. This is a time for us to get healthy. It's not putting blame on anyone, but the women and men, and even more women and men, I can't speak for children, who die from COVID have so many comorbidities that have not been often well managed. Hypertension, diabetes, weight issues, their asthma, smoking. So this is a time, a good friend of mine, Val Scott, says, you don't have to be wealthy to be healthy. And it is important to start cooking. You know, I have a program coming up. Are you digging your grave with your fork? Look at get new forks, new spoons, new pots and pans. Start looking at yourself, our community. People of color ate from the land. Someone that says, get rid of the pharmacy, PHARMCAY, and go to the farm. We're going to start having spring with fresh fruits and vegetables, and the summer coming. really, this is a time for us to work together, learn techniques for cooking, movement. Some people don't like the word exercise, but I would say COVID for me really made that pivot to say, can I do? I want to stay healthy and I want to stay around. And I look at my 90-year-old mother who's made some tremendous changes herself. Because if you can fight, if you get COVID and you're fairly healthy and things from head to toe work, you can often have a strong immune system to do the fighting. If you're already compromised, this is what those comorbidities, we have to take care of ourselves. We are our best saviors. And so I would just say that, when you know better, you do better. And for Ron and I, when you get, you give, and when you learn, you teach. And it is our hope and is our fervent hope that this is why we did this tonight. It takes a lot of time, but this is, the word doctor means teacher. And we are honored that we have been a part of this community. And for me in particular, a part of the Cleveland Clinic has been a third of my life working there. And I enjoy giving back with the Celebrate Sisterhood program that will air this year. We'll put information about that. But this is a time, guys, to talk to yourself, to work together as teams, to how does the African proverb go? If you want to go far, go together.
Go alone.
Go along. I mean, if you want to go far.
Fast. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh God, see, it's end of the day.
I'm sorry. I messed you up. If you want to go fast, go alone.
If you want to go
If you want to go far, go together.
That's what I want to say.
Yeah, sorry.
This is a good time for us to cause good trouble.
Yes.
Good trouble with saying no to fast foods, cooking, eating, get rid of all this unnecessary, unhealthy stuff in our lives.
Yeah.
Cause good trouble in your own life.
Yeah.
Turn the pivot and come out of this alive, feeling better.
Yeah.
Pass the word.
Yeah, and take advantage of our good fortune that we're well and able to get vaccinated and able to have good health care. Thank you both so much. And thank you to everyone who attended. If you'll take a notice at the end, we'd like you to take a brief survey if you're willing. We very much appreciate it. And the Zoom session has been recorded. So if there are other people that you would like to share this with, and we'll send a follow-up email with a link to the survey and include any additional resources and information that we think might be helpful. Thank you so much again, Drs. Adams and Bradley. You are wonderful, just wonderful assets to our community, and we thank you so much for your valuable time tonight. Thanks everyone for your participation. Stay safe, get your shot, wear your mask, and take good care of each other. Good night,
everyone. Good night.
Don't procrastinate, vaccinate.
That's right.
Thank
Good night.
Okay. Bye-bye.